What's up everyone, Patrick here. I am a licensed dietitian with over 10 years of experience, and today I'm going to be reacting to Nyjah Huston's diet. We are going to take a look at his appearance on the Men's Health Gym and Fridge series, as well as an article published on livestrong.com where he kind of outlines his diet and takes us through what he eats every day. I don't really have anything planned out. I'm just going to kind of be reacting and giving you my honest thoughts. So if you find it interesting, let me know. I usually like to kick my videos off with a little bit of skating. So here is a recent session that I had in Chattanooga.
So high I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight.
Okay, Nyjah, let's go check out what you eat to stay healthy.
All right, here is my fridge.
What do you always have in your fridge?
All right, a couple staple items for the fridge. Green juice, gotta stay healthy out here.
Yeah, so the only thing with those green juices and really anything that's a juice type beverage is that there's probably going to be a lot of added sugar. You can find them without added sugar, but as a rule of thumb, what you probably want to be doing is having at least half of the amount of grams of carbohydrates and protein. So for example, if you're going to have a juice that has 40 grams of carbohydrate, you want to have at least 20 grams of protein with that. So you always want to be pairing carbohydrates with protein. And this is just a good example of a scenario where you may want to do that because again, these juices tend to have quite a bit of added sugar to them. So definitely something to look out for.
Gotta have the Monster, stay hyped up. Fresh squeezed orange juice, a must. Almond milk, I was raised vegan, so I've never liked normal milk.
Okay, so a lot to unpack here. Veganism and athletes. Yeah. Let me start by saying that I've provided nutrition counseling for people who were vegan, vegetarian, carnivore, omnivore, whatever. There's nothing inherently wrong with these ways of eating. It's the application that I sometimes can take a little bit of objection to. I'm sure you're familiar with various articles, documentaries on Netflix, really promoting veganism for athletes. And my problem with that is that you take an arbitrarily rigid way of eating and you apply it to a broad segment of the population. And this is completely backwards of how we're trained as dietitians. As dietitians, you look at the individual. You assess what their needs are, their environment, their specific circumstances, their individualized needs, and anything else you can get your hands on. And then you look at food and different ways of eating as resources and tools in your toolbox. And then you put together a plan that works for that individual. You don't take a rigid set of rules and then just apply it to an entire segment of your clientele. That's a bad way of doing things. And this is nothing against Nyjah. I mean, obviously the guy's a legend. What he's accomplished speaks for itself. He's obviously doing a lot of things right. and is ahead of the game. My main issue is with misrepresentation of information, and I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So if we Google vegan athletes, one of the first things that comes up is the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. Sounds official. Plant-based protein sources are best because, unlike animal sources, they contain fiber and complex carbohydrates. The recommended dietary allowance for the average sedentary or lightly active adult is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. No, it's not. For most people, this is more than enough. No, it isn't. However, protein needs for athletes may range from 1.2 to 1.7 grams per kilogram per day. Wow, that was actually almost accurate. So first, saying that plant-based sources are best because they contain fiber and complex carbohydrates, you could easily eat meat and then also eat a source of fiber and complex carbohydrates. That would be a much more well-rounded meal with a higher concentration of leucine, most importantly, per calorie that you're eating. And the recommended dietary allowance for the average sedentary or lightly active adult is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. This is really old. No one's really arguing at this point that this is valid. Applied physiology and nutrient metabolism, protein, quote, requirements beyond the RDA, implications for optimizing health. 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram is a more ideal target for achieving optimal health outcomes in adults. Just hop over to examine.com. Let's see. Your optimal daily protein intake depends on your weight, goal, and level of physical activity. From 1.2 to 1.8 grams per kilogram if you are sedentary, all the way up to 3.3 grams per kilogram if you're trying to maximize fat gain during a bulk. Yeah, that's higher than 0.8. So yeah, what I see happening is that, especially when pushing these vegan diets for athletes, the issue that you run into with protein and quality protein is so substantial that a lot of these sources are just going to lie about it. And that's not good for anyone, especially the athlete. Okay, that's my rant. Let's jump back into the video.
I love fruit. Some of my favorites are mango, papaya, you got avocados. This is definitely a staple. Always gotta have the avocado.
And yeah, sure, oranges, mangoes, these are great carbohydrate sources. And what I'm thinking he's probably doing is having a lot of these carbs before, during, or after his activity, because he's super active. I mean, we'll go over the amount of activity this guy is incorporating in a week, but it's super active. So the one thing to keep in mind with when you look at athletes' diets compared to the average person who's even working out daily, but not nearly having the volume that these guys are having, is that you want to be very, very particular about the way you time your carbohydrates. Again, you want to mostly be pairing carbohydrates with protein, but really the only time you probably want to be having what we call naked carbohydrates, which are carbohydrates without pairing them with a protein or a fiber, is again right before activity, during it, or very shortly afterwards, because your body is going to directly utilize that glucose into the muscles to replenish muscle glycogen. So again, just something to keep in mind.
Do you like to cook?
Breakfast is one of the few things that I'll ever actually cook myself.
What's your favorite thing to cook for breakfast?
Chicken sausage, good for the breakfast. Avocado, piece of toast with some jam or peanut butter. Mushrooms and spinach mixed together. Good all-around breakfast right there.
Yeah, so my first thoughts there are, wow, not a lot of carbohydrates for breakfast. So it doesn't surprise me he has green juices and mangoes and orange juice and all this stuff. He's probably loading up quite a bit on carbohydrates before, during, and after activity, if he's only having, toast and jam for his carbohydrate source for breakfast.
What foods do you hate?
There's definitely a couple. Eggs being one of them. There are eggs right here, but these are my roommates. These are not mine, just so you guys know that.
So when I have people that are avoiding eggs, I will usually ask some questions as to why. And There are obviously many valid reasons for not having eggs. You could have an allergy. You could be more on the plant-based or vegan side and want to avoid them, although many plant-based and vegetarians also do include eggs in their diet because they are so nutrient dense. Great source of many nutrients that are going to be very conducive to an athlete.
A lot of dairy. I just don't eat a lot of dairy. I feel like most of this is because I was raised the way I was.
What's your go-to comfort food?
Yeah, and again, are there people that don't tolerate dairy? Sure. Are there people that choose not to have cow's milk and dairy products because of ethical reasons? Sure. I would never look down upon that. But I would at least ask the question if it was my client as to why you are leaving so many highly vital, absorbable, and important nutrients on the table by avoiding a food group that is as nutrient dense as dairy.
Definitely dark chocolate. It is fire.
Yeah, for sure. I can't hate on that, man. Dark chocolate, a little bit of almond butter or peanut butter. Yes.
What do you eat on a cheat day?
I love sweets. I love cookies. I love cake, apple pie. I've always been that way.
Yeah, and again, probably nothing really wrong with that. I mean, he's, again, the dude's super active. He definitely needs the carbohydrate replenishment to help support, adequate muscle glycogen while he's going through all his skate sessions, his workouts, etc. But I would probably look at his breakfast and his meals earlier in the day and try to incorporate more carbohydrates from whole foods in those meals. That's going to support more adequate muscle glycogen during his workouts. He's not going to be as depleted afterwards, and that's probably leading to a lot of cravings, especially if you're accustomed to having a lot of sweet foods. You're going to crave those foods more later on if you don't front load more calories earlier in the day.
My mom used to bake so many good vegan baked goods when I was a kid, and I was always so hyped, man. I miss those.
Have you made any changes to your diet while training for the Olympics?
Throughout the last year as a whole, I've just tried to be a healthier person. I feel like it's something that I'm consistently trying to get better and better at. Overall, this year, I feel like I'm feeling better than last year too, just eating healthy.
And, hell yeah, man. Good for him. Trying to be healthier. A lot of people might kind of shit on that and just say that, oh, well, what is healthy? Carnivores might say, that vegans have a skewed outlook on what is healthy, vegans to carnivores. And that's obviously a very extreme comparison, two opposite ends of the spectrum. But in my opinion, at the end of the day, if you're committing and being very intentional about your diet, no matter what you're doing something very good for yourself, because if it's not going to work, you're going to learn and you can make adjustments and continue to be intentional and move forward. And there's a lot more to be said for that than what the average person is doing out there. So good on Nyjah Huston. That's awesome. All right, so I just pulled up this article from livestrong.com where Nyjah kind of takes us through each of his meals and gives us a little more information. On breakfast, he says, I always like to eat a big breakfast. I'm a hungry guy. That's funny because that's what I was pointing out. I guess maybe he is eating a bigger breakfast than he made it seem like in the Men's Health. He does mention sweet potatoes there. So, if he's incorporating sweet potatoes and some of that toast and jam, maybe his carb needs are a little bit more substantial than I thought for breakfast. And then for lunch, normally eat a chicken meal with a side of Brussels sprouts, carrots, rice, quinoa. Yeah, man, pretty well-rounded there. That's awesome. For dinner, I like to have a carb and lean protein. I'll probably be pasta, sushi, salmon. Yeah, especially, if he's got, competition coming up and he's more on the carb loading side, that's probably a good way to go. And one other thing that kind of crosses my mind as I just skimmed through the Livestrong article is that I would want to double check his total calories. I actually ran into Nyjah Huston at the Tampa Pro one year, and he's not a small guy. I'm 6 foot, about 180, and he wasn't much smaller than me. When you look up his height and weight, you get something like 5'8" or 5'9", 160. He's definitely bigger than that, and he does carry some muscle on him. So, I watched something on Neen Williams where he talked about how, due to his skating and volume of training, I mean, he's pushing 4,000 calories each day, which, you can easily need when you're putting in the amount of work that these guys are. So I would want to just double check his calories and make sure that he's, not leaving anything on the table there. These 3 meals, pretty solid, but a lot of, especially athletes, are going to do better with about 4 meals a day. A lot of times simply due to protein needs. 30 to 40 grams 4 times a day is a really good place to start, as long as that's quality protein and you can get it in consistently without any digestive issues. But yeah, overall, not bad, Nyjah. Good job, man.